after winning Game 1, while the Warriors had won 13 straight Game 1s at home under Steve Kerr before the loss last night. So now that we've seen these teams face off, should the Celtics be favored now, Legs?
No question they should be favored now. I mean, there's no doubt. Listen, they went in, they stole Game 1. They've got home court now. And I thought this was a coin flip series going in. Ultimately, I gave the advantage of Golden State, who was undefeated at home in the postseason, getting it back to their floor for a Game 7. That's ultimately why I picked them. But for me, it was that close. The margin is razor thin here. So now that you've stolen the game in this fashion, this dominant in the fourth quarter, yeah, you'd be foolish not to think now that the Boston Celtics are the favorites. All I'm going to say is Golden State is not a team that's going to go away. And I hear what you're saying about matchups and the personnel's not changing. But what can change, clearly, is you can clean up. Listen, there was half a dozen times in the fourth quarter they overreacted to penetration. They overreacted to Brown and Tatum, and they had too many guys flooding to the lane with too great a distance to get back to the three-point line. That is correctable. Offensively, they can go look at the third quarter. They can look at the start of the game. They can say, listen, look at the ball movement, the player movement, the guard screening action, the cuts, the slips, making Boston chase and communicate. How many mistakes did Boston make in the first quarter just in communication because of the way Golden State was moving, the ball screens, the guard screening action? That disappeared in the fourth quarter. So there are things Golden State is going to address, and I think they're too good a team to go down 2-0, losing the first two at home. I think they win Game 2, and now look, the burden is on them. Can you go win a road game in Boston? That's what it's going to come down to, and if they can, then all of a sudden Golden State will be the favorite again. But for now, absolutely, Boston should be favored from this point on because they did what they had to do. They stole the first game.
Okay. Go ahead, Kim.
Well, Legs, this is why I disagree with you at, right? I understand the movement of the offense in the first quarter, but I also understand the nerves and being nervous coming out into the NBA Finals. The Boston Celtics had a lot of brain farts that we usually don't see, like Steph Curry, guys sagging back in the pick and roll, not being up, knowing that they probably went over there and shoot around, things to that nature. And what happened? They adjusted in the second quarter, and Steph Curry had 0 points. See, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And what we're forgetting is that going into halftime, the Boston Celtics were up 2 points after being down double figures in the first half. Then all of a sudden, Golden State came and made a run in the third quarter, and the Boston Celtics walked it back down again in the time that it mattered the most in the fourth quarter. The Boston Celtics just have this tendency, and they have this identity that they could go on runs by getting stops. They're getting stops. And so when I look at the ball movement, right, when I look at guys knocking down shots, I mean, they were wide open shots. They were passing up good shots to get great shots. And with that being said, I think the Celtics have another level to take. Jason Tatum didn't shoot the ball extremely well. I could count 3 times at least. He was at the top of the key with his feet set for wide open threes, and he just didn't hit them. It was one point where he airballed the three-point shot in the first quarter. He wasn't the best version of himself. What I'm saying is, just like we think the Golden State Warriors could give more, the Celtics can too. And one more point, Stephen, and I'm done. Draymond Green is going to have to score the ball against the Boston Celtics. He was 2 for 12 last night. They're going to make the adjustment and dare him to beat them. He's going to have one of those remember the time moments where he scored 20 points in the game in order for them to win this series. I guarantee you.
Well, let me talk to you, Escape from Alcatraz. Let me talk to you for a second here on a couple of matters. Number one, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with anything that you said. And Tim Legler was making some points. So let's just answer the question directly. You damn right Boston should be the favorite right now after that performance last night and the kind of hole that they put Golden State in. Let me get direct in what I'm about to say. The Boston Celtics cannot win Game 2. And we expect the Golden State Warriors to win this series. They can't win Game 2. If the Golden State Warriors go down 0-2, they're not beating the Boston Celtics for the next 5 games. I think it's safe for us all to assume that. That's just too much to ask against a team as elite as they are defensively. I just don't expect that kind of breakdown from the Boston Celtics. Number 3, I will say this to you, KP. when we highlight what all the things that you just articulated about how Boston could step up their game, here's where I respectfully disagree. I don't believe all of those dudes would get the opportunity to do what they did if Jason Tatum was on. I think there's an exchange that took place. Because Jason Tatum wasn't on, he became a distributor, which is why he had the 13 assists. Those dudes were making shots. Remember, he took 17 shots. Jason Tatum's good for 25 shots when he's rolling, as he should be, because he's the superstar for that team. So it's not that I'm not saying that those guys wouldn't be effective. I'm simply saying if Jason Tatum is making shots, he's passing the ball less. There's less opportunities for them to do what they did. It's just that it would be him doing it instead of them. If it's not him, it's them. If it's not them, it's him. But Jaylen Brown has shown up as well, and they got two stars that you got to contend with. It's just that simple. In the end, your last point about Draymond Green, we got to bring this up about Draymond Green. All-world defensive player, orchestrator, your point forward, distributor of the basketball savant. Could you imagine how lethal the Golden State Warriors would be if Draymond Green was a reliable perimeter shooter? Think about that, because you couldn't leave him open. And then that would open the floodgates. Well, yeah, years ago, he would have been the MVP of the finals that they lost to Cleveland the way he played in that Game 7. Remember that? He got ejected. I'm sorry, he got suspended for Game 5. Came back in Game 6, they lost to Cleveland. Game 7, he played lights out, was absolutely spectacular. And I believe in Dre that when you put the pressure on him and you point to him and you say it's you, if you don't do this, they gonna lose. I think that he'll make sure he does his job. But he has to, because Boston is daring him to do so. I also think Gary Payton Jr., what the hell you got him activated for the game and not play him? The big boy that they got coming off the bench. I always forget how to pronounce his name. But, this brother here can hit some points. He can hit some threes. You need size, but you need an offensive threat that's playing your 4, your 5, because Boston's going to key on the guards. If you Steve Kerr, you got to take these kind of chances. And also you got to play a defender like Kuminga, because his athleticism and his length might help you on the defensive end of the floor as well. I think that there's a lot that Steve Kerr could do. But they got to do it, man, because Boston is no joke.
They better respect the others. That's what they better do. They better respect the others. They better respect Big Al Horford like he didn't outplay Giannis in that Game 4 on the road in Milwaukee when he went for 26 or 28 points. Yeah, in the fourth quarter. See, here's the thing. The thing that I recognize about Jason Tatum, I believe it was Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals. I believe he had about 25 points, 11 rebounds, and 9 assists. He shot the ball 21 times in that game. See, Jason Tatum, Stephen A. and Legs, he's growing right before our very eyes. See, just because they call your play doesn't mean it's your shot. And he's starting to get that. He's starting to make guys around him better. The great Kevin Garnett used to tell me, hey, man, when you see a franchise guy, watch him and see if he's able to get his 20 or 30 and get people around him 10 to 15 points. That's what we're seeing out of Jason Tatum. This is why we see this team being so lethal. Let's not act like we didn't see Grant Williams in a crucial Game 7 light it up against the Milwaukee Bucks at the crib. Listen, I'm telling y'all, man, this Boston Celtics team is real. Coach Ime Udoka hold these guys accountable. He has put together a hell of a game plan. He has his rotations down. He rolled with his bench in that fourth quarter last night. Peyton Pritchard played 8 minutes in the fourth quarter. You talk about trust. Game 1 of the finals, he played 8 minutes in the fourth. Hey, look, I'm telling you, we don't talk about Ime Udoka enough and the phenomenal job he's been doing in this postseason for his adjustments
one of the best coaches.
And rotation.
He's Coach of the Year candidate to me. We've talked about him enough.
To that point, what Perk just said, were you surprised by who stepped up for Boston?
No, I wasn't surprised by who it was. I was surprised by the extent. I mean, look, Derek White has been great for them throughout the postseason. Al Horford's been fantastic. He's turned back the clock. This might be the best I've seen Al Horford play offensively in his career. So I'm not surprised that they had moments, but to get hit with that kind of a barrage by the role players, spotting up, knocking down those kinds of shots on this stage in this moment. To that extent, yes, it was shocking. I was sitting there in the fourth quarter. I mean, my mouth was open like, what am I watching right now? That simultaneously, not only is Boston unstoppable on offense, but on the other end, Golden State is being completely taken out of everything they like to do. So, yes, I was absolutely surprised, especially the way Golden State played in the third quarter. They established control, which they typically do in the third quarter. Going into the fourth, man, they looked like they were in total control. And here's the thing. They're also an elite defensive team, and I'm thinking you get a double-digit lead, even if your offense bogs down. Your defense should be able to keep you at least in the moment so that then your offense can win it if it's a one-possession game late. Their defense was being gutted at the exact same time that they couldn't get anything going on the other end of the floor. There's no other word to describe it. It was dominance on the part of the Boston Celtics, and you've got to give all of those dudes credit because they were ready when the ball came to let it fly and knock it down, and they fed off each other. You could just see the confidence building, and I got news for you. When Boston left the arena last night to go back to the hotel, I guarantee you they're looking at each other's eyes. You know what they're saying to themselves? Those dudes can't beat us. That's what Boston was telling themselves when they left there last night, doing what they did in the fourth quarter.
I can tell you exactly what they were saying because I was right near them when they were walking off the court. 1 down, 3 to go. 1 down, 3 to go. And 3 more. 3 more. That's what they were saying.
Hey, Perk, you got a tour to give, don't you? Aren't you the tour guy?
No, Perk, I got one question for you before we
No, they reopened it. It's not a museum no more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perk, yes or no question. Is that a onesie? Like, does that go all the way to the feet?
Really? Oh, no, Molly, it's not a onesie.
Oh, it's just a top.
It's not a onesie.
It's just a zip-up
You know
top.
they don't make onesies at 5X. You know that.
I appreciate the uniqueness. Kendrick Perkins just promised me one thing. You will never show up on national TV with that again. That's all I ask. That's all I ask.
Hey,
Don't tell Perk.